Well, here she comes, walking down the street. Get the funniest looks. Anyway, it's Ergonomics. It's Friday. I
Was that the
just for
monkeys by
everybody.
any chance?
Yeah,
Are
it
you,
was
yeah.
because
Is that
people
any
say
reference?
we monkey around, but
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
it's not true. The monkeys do that.
yeah.
Oh, how's your week been, Stephen?
It's been good. Yeah, I've a 3-day trip to Ireland this week, so a little bit tired after a lot of travelling and flights and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, great. Down the east coast, so flew into Cork on Tuesday. I was in Waterford on Wednesday and finished up in Dublin yesterday, and then came home. So it's been a really good
Wow.
trip actually. It was an area where COVID really sort of impacted sort of me just purely because of the ability to go out and see some of the partners and the end user customers we've got out there. So it's suddenly now just becoming a little bit easier. So it was great to spend some time training some people up from the furniture world around ergonomics. It was great to interact with some end users and sort of understand the challenges they experience and then how our solutions can sort of slot in and sort of help them. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. Really enjoyed it. Good,
Oh, no,
good 3 days.
and a wonderful part of the world as
Yeah,
well
fabulous.
to go in. And you went in, I presume, with a suitcase full of keepers, came back with a suitcase full of Guinness and whiskey.
Yeah, no Guinness or whiskey was consumed on this trip. I can confirm it was a teetotal trip. This one was, so
Oh, wow, there we go.
I didn't stray off the path, as it
Well
were.
done, you. Well, we're going
Thank
to
you.
bring our special guest in for this week, and here he is, Dan Gable.
Boom.
Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We always like to start, Dan, by asking said guests to tell us a little bit about themselves and what it is that they do. So do tell us about you and shout out.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I started off in telly a long while ago. So I've been in content creation. It will be 40 years next year, if you can believe it. So started off in TV, radio.
Well, that's when the test card was there still,
Yeah,
right?
when I started, they had like Electroset kind of rollers for
Right.
the blinking
teleprompts.
Yeah, no, not for for the credits.
For the credits at the end.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They used to get stuck every now and again, didn't they?
Yeah, you still see it getting stuck. Well, they were manually cranked.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
Could start going like that across the screen.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I did that for a while, then got into corporate video production and music videos and stuff like that. And then founded a company called Shout Out, which basically makes videos automatically. So it's what I'm kind of really passionate about content, but also really passionate about authenticity, about, like video journalism, about capturing the moment, stuff like you're doing here, completely like off the cuff. I think that's where the best things happen. And what Shout Out does is it kind of turns you into a video journalist. You can brand up content. You can send links to people to contribute to what you're doing, and you can offer testimonials as well. So that's basically a terrible description of Shout Out, but that's what
well, it wasn't that bad. So in a way, it's a kind of curation of content.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is normally when you make videos, you film the video, edit it, and then deliver a final video. Shout Out reverses that process. You build a branding template first. So it's almost like a sandwich without the filling, where you've got music, name caption, any other elements, intro and outro. And then you can record on a computer or smartphone, and it puts it all together. But it also means you can send links out to other people so they can record stuff. A lot of events we're using, it's great for events because you get interviews, they get shared within seconds rather than hours.
It's lovely. So it kind of links in with, doing OBs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a bit like a modern day version of what in fact, on my pitch deck, I show an OB truck, and it is very much like that. But you've just got a bunch of people with phones, and it all gets fed to this kind of central dashboard, where you can, add subtitles automatically, brands it all up. You can turn things into compilations. So yeah, it's absolutely that kind of idea. A lot of my ideas are based around old telly techniques because they were, I've got this theory on social media. Actually, I was telling my daughter about this the other day.
Okay.
is that when you look at the way social media is going now, we all think it's kind of, it's new and
It's really old, isn't it?
well, it's really old, but it's also following the exact path that TV follows. So if you look at the 50s and how TV started, and social was just following that same path. It's really interesting to kind of sort of see that. Even things like influencers, and the way ads, the way kind of influencers are advertising things. So like 50s telly, it's really funny.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
I think the same progression will actually happen in terms of the content. Now everyone's talking about storytelling, and of course, it has to be. You have to be, it has to be storytelling, right, on TV.
Yeah. Well, it does. It does. I mean, I was challenging everybody on my post this morning. I don't know whether you saw it, but I challenged everyone by saying the bots are here, and I said,
yeah.
I've been following one person in particular on LinkedIn who I'm absolutely certain is actually an AI bot.
Right. Okay.
Right. But I was just putting it out there to people that would they really actually know? And here's the types of things that you would look for that would identify that this would be an AI bot.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you would not find an AI bot doing is this. And that's why I think this kind of content is incredibly powerful, because actually you can't do this with AI at the moment. You can't put 3 people in a space and get them to bounce ideas off of each other or to ask each other questions and get real answers in real time. You just can't do that. So do you know what I'm saying?
I do. Do you know what? It's really funny because I write these articles, about marketing every month. And my next article, I'm going to scoop my next article for you now. It's about exactly that subject. And what I find really interesting is, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but go with me. The music business, right? So the music business, technology kind of. It got overrun with technology, a bit like AI is for marketing, and then the music got really complicated. It got multi-layered. It got really overproduced, and it got kind of quite dense. And then what happened is in the 90s, it became like the singer-songwriter again, someone playing the guitar, and it became very kind of a reaction against the technology. And I think what's interesting, exactly kind of what you said. What's interesting about AI is not what AI is going to do. It's going to be the reaction against AI when everyone gets sick of it. And it's going to be exactly this. It's going to be authentic communication, because, these things don't last very long. And, I'm kind of looking forward to that reaction against it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I have a top 20 music podcast, and I interview musicians day in, day out, it seems. And we talk about modern delivery. Whilst technology has enabled everybody to be a player, everybody's a player, the cost of actually producing music and distributing music has disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. However, you've now got to shout across the algorithm, and you've got to shout across the noise, because there's so much music being released. And I read even on the stats on podcasts, thousands and thousands of new podcasts go out each week. There's only a very small percentage of those get past 3 episodes. In terms of music, it's only about 30% of the music that gets uploaded to the streaming platforms that ever gets listened to. There's so much just sat there that never gets any plays, never gets any traction at all.
But sorry, I keep cutting you off. But music's a great example. I mean, the thing about anything like market, this is my mantra about marketing. There's so much around marketing on social, but the best marketing always is have a great product. With Shout Out, I'm grafting away every day getting this product right, and people are saying to me, you should be doing more marketing. It's like, no, because the product is brilliant. Then it will in some ways market itself. It's the same with making videos. If you like me as a video maker, the best marketing I can do is make great videos. People watch them and go, well, we want some of those. And same with music as well. So it's really interesting that there is the danger of people spending so much time on marketing and not enough on the product or the song or whatever that is. And actually, we just get inundated with kind of
Tosh.
tosh.
Do you know?
It's a technical term.
Yeah. Do you know, I was with someone this week, and they reminded me of a phrase that I hadn't heard for a while, and it is, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And you know, it's just funny that this is the way we've gone with this conversation, and someone said that earlier in the week, but it is very true. You know, ultimately, like you're saying, focus on the product. You can put bells and whistles and do all these fancy things. Ultimately, if the base product itself is of a certain level or a certain point, that's where it's going to get you. Focus the energy on the product, and as you say, that's almost the best marketing, is the fact that it is such a good product. It almost sells to a degree itself, or it certainly helps the process, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely right. It's just a really interesting time where I think it's, you know, what, certainly on social, where are the priorities? I saw a post from someone. I love this post. Well, actually, I shouldn't mention the name, but he was talking about you know, all these kind of get rich quick schemes on social and how kind of ridiculous they are, and it's so true. There just seems to be so much around shortcutting stuff rather than having actually the fun of making something great. You know, it's that isn't getting lost, but it just seems to be a little bit more about destination than journey, and that's sad.
Yeah, I did, but again, as you say, you look at all of those things and you think, I have seen them before in my lifetime. It wasn't, you know, we used to sit there at work and we used to get those sort of things through on the fax machine, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's a classified ads, isn't it? It's it
was like, you know, make £1,000. Well, back in the day, you know, make £1,000 a month, you know, and it was like, do it this way, do it that way, and it's all the same rhetoric, it's all the same spiel, but you now get on a post where it's like, you know, someone putting a selfie up there and going, I did $1 million, you know, deal at the beginning of the week, etc., and I've done this and I've done that, and it's like, really? well, if and then yeah, and I always say with anybody on, here's me getting on my high horse, but I always say, if if you really want to know, just watch anybody's social media over a period of time. Don't go into it in one day as a snapshot, but watch it over a period of time, because the amount of times I've seen sort of like someone at the beginning of the week trying to pull us in emotionally and saying, well, you know, it's hard as a business owner, and I've, you know, my business is really struggling at the moment, and you know, actually I'm thinking I might even have to close it, or, you know, and everybody's jumping on it, and then, you know, 3 days time it's like, oh, I've closed 6 deals this week and I'm making £1 million, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, what? You had that much of a turnaround in 3 days? Utter rubbish, you know.
It's throwing muck at a wall and seeing what sticks, isn't it? It is funny. I do that with a couple of people, actually, because you can sort of spot the kind of, you know, the sort of desperation, is that the right word?
You can,
like some sort of, you know, kind of engagement, and it is sad and it is bizarre, and you kind of got to ask yourself, what's the end goal? You know, why? What? You know, what do you want it for? And that's, I guess, the thing around that is, like, you know, social is great. If you've got something to say, it's brilliant. Like, the best time, you know, in the world to be able to promote kind of what you believe in. But you've got to believe in it, or you've got to actually have a kind of something that comes from the core that you're interested in, not just trying to get engagement for engagement's sake. And that's kind of what you're saying, Graham, isn't it? That it's just like people just posting anything, just
to grab people in. Yeah.
I do wonder, Graham. I do wonder, going back to what you were saying there about the consistency of message. I do wonder if people's messages change over in what are perceived as quieter business times. And the reason I say that is we've just gone through what usually is a 2-week Easter break, but I think, having spoken to people around different parts of the country, it's almost ended up as a 3-week Easter break. A lot of people had the first 2 weeks off. A lot of people have had the 2nd and 3rd weeks of April off. So it seems to have almost stretched out. But I do wonder whether there's any correlation between the messages and the sort of the diverse message, and are people going totally off-piste during those quieter times when actually maybe they are sort of lacking in business and lacking in opportunities and leads, and whether they think, I need to do something really radical here because it's actually a little bit quiet, so I'm going to completely change the the approach I take, as Dan said, to see if any mud will sort of stick that way, or whether that's just the way they approach it, or certain times of the year they change the consistency of the message.
Well, I'd love Dan's take on this, because my thing about this is that even if you're trying to create story-led, personal-based content, have a bloody strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, like, you know, everyone talks about story, like we can't exist. We are nothing without story, without having some sort of constant narrative going on in our head. We can't. We're not human. So story is, you know, it's not an important thing. It's the thing. Without it, there's nothing. But I think what people sometimes say that story is a kind of almost like a format. Like I mean, you probably talk about this a lot, but the LinkedIn, you know, that kind of endless, like, woe is me LinkedIn post. You know, they've got all the basically the gaps, and it's completely formatted. And, you know, it's fill in tough childhood, you know, neurodiversity or whatever the thing is. And it's just, that's not a story. That's just a format, and it's boring. Like, does anyone really care? But, you know, does it work? It probably did the first time, because it was probably pretty interesting. And maybe the second time and third time, and when it came from the heart, you can tell. But when it's just being copied, like, really?
Yeah.
We've discussed that, Graham, haven't we? Where we've seen a couple of sort of posts that we've exchanged message on and said they're sort of, you know, overplaying a certain theme. You know, there's almost, you've gone so far. Okay, that's fine. You've got to be a little bit more original. But if you just keep banging on the same thing and the same approach, it's got to evolve and develop over time, hasn't it? If you're just coming out with the same thing, you will then in effect turn people off and lose interest, won't you?
Well, I think the very telling thing for me is where people, because they haven't focused on any proper strategy that's linked to sales, if they're trying to make sales out of it, they then kind of overstep or overplay a certain element to the point of detrimentation in terms of actually getting their sales message out. Because, and I've seen it where someone that was a social media marketing business had to put a post out to go, people, you don't understand that I do social media marketing. Now, look, any social media marketing business that has to put a post out that says you don't understand that I do social media marketing is failing dismally at social media marketing, right?
Yeah.
I can't market myself, but give me your money and I'll market you. You know, it's like, I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, because Dan's got Ed Sheeran in his showreel, right? That's brilliant, right? But, you know, it's like Ed Sheeran saying, right, I don't know, I don't write songs, you know. You know, I mean, it worked for Lewis Capaldi where he turned up jokingly, right? And this is where you can do it, when he turned up jokingly on Good Morning and said, no, don't buy my album, buy Ed Sheeran's, it's better. And actually, you know, my album's loads of time. That works because he has got good songs on his album. He is a good singer-songwriter. People want to see him. So that's not lost on the audience, because, as we said, go back to the product's good. So you can be funny about the product. But actually, if your product's rubbish and you're saying that doesn't work.
Yeah. It's true. You're so right about strategy. I mean, even on I'm not like an expert on social and like long-term strategy, but what I understand is like bits of content, like, so like video making. Some videos I make are, you know, they're expensive, they take a long time, and you know that, but ultimately, like, without having the end game at the big, like, you know, what do you want people to think, you know, do after watching your video? Where does it fit in? You haven't really got it. You haven't got anything, you know, like, until you've got that strategy piece, and, you know, where does it fit in? What's the point of it? And then you kind of, you know, design something creatively around that. And I think you're so right. People don't tend to do that. They tend to do things in isolation, or they see something that seemed to have worked, not realizing that it's part of a big piece. You know, it's one piece of a jigsaw, and then they copy it and repeat it, and then wonder why things aren't working, because they're not seeing the big picture, if you like, of the strategy.
And that's right, because it should be a push and pull type
Completely.
Scenario, because on the one hand, creating content is a creative process, and therefore you should enjoy that creative process. You should enjoy, making something, etc. But you need to have someone pulling at you from the other end saying, and what's the money that's going to be made from this?
Yeah.
Where's the end result? Where's the drop in? Where's the return on investment? All of that sort of thing. So if you're just having fun, but you've not thought about where it's leading to, then, and that's why for me, that's why I think reverse engineered marketing works best, where you actually start, as you say, from the end and work back. What's the purpose here? How many pegs are we trying to get in this board?
Exactly.
What color pegs are they? What does that look like? What's it feel like when those pegs go in? And how do people actually get there? Then work back. How do we get those pegs to come to that board?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's what marketing should be about.
And do you know, just the one thing about that, I 100% agree. And the one thing that's really interesting of what you said, and what I kind of live by, my mantra is like creativity is a function of constraints. So basically, that's everything to me. Even like my video production company is called Sprat. I use Sprat to catch a mackerel, that create things that with an intent in mind. So once you've got the kind of strategy, that becomes your constraint, and that breeds better creativity. Because if you've got no boundaries around the creative, it's going to be rubbish basically, because you've got no, it's like artwork without a frame. So I think that's so funny that the two are linked, and I think the creative is more fun when you define the constraint first.
Now, one of the reasons we wanted to get you on is because this is an industry. We've called this Wow Ergonomics. It's a very loose term, right? But I keep trying to get creatives on here, because this has been an industry that has been very old-fashioned in its approach. Okay. It's typically come out of the health and safety sector. It's typically come out of really people needing to buy a product because something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And yet, especially through the COVID period and everything that happened, and the change in working and move towards sort of hybrid working and shifting kind of work culture, that's really pushed the other way.
Yeah.
So now a lot of businesses are beginning to look at staff well-being as a priority, and understanding that productivity comes from looking after people. However, this industry is still quite stuck in a responsive type setting.
Reactive, not proactive.
Reactive rather than proactive. Yeah. So it's still kind of going, you need to do this from health and safety. It's all about, filling in forms, doing this, and then, as opposed to getting to end users and going, end users, you really need this product because you really need this, you really need that. How do, from your experience, how do industries like this turn things around?
I don't quite, when you say like this, what industries, like what in terms of
the ergonomics industry, the industry dealing with selling well-being products at work to end users in order to make sure that they're working in a fit and healthy way.
So almost, Graham, to get away from the prevention is better than cure situation. Or rather, to get to that situation that we're right, rather than curing problems, how do we get in front of it and prevent those problems from happening? I guess is what you're saying, Graham, isn't it?
Okay, interesting. Okay, and this is what, so in terms of, so you're asking me about like creative messaging basically, and then this is one of the many industries, sometimes the buyer is different to the user, right? So that's going to be the first.
Correct.
Correct.
Basically, so are you do you want to, obviously you've got to target two, but do you target the user and rely on kind of pester power, or do you target the buyer and to, that conversation is more about increased productivity, less sick days, all that kind of stuff, health and safety. And then it's a tricky one because, I mean, to answer you, who are you targeting? But give me a constraint on that, and then I'll, you targeting user or buyer.
Okay, well, let me throw a user case in there. One of the things that we've identified, right? We'll make this quite simple. One of the main things that Stephen's company does, for example, is laptop stands, right? Laptop stand, separate keyboard, separate mouse. It's something that ergonomists have been going on and on and on about for years, right? If you're working with a laptop, don't just work directly at the laptop.
Yeah.
Raise the height of the screen. That's what
raise the height of the screen.
Rather than almost the shrimp or the C position of being hunched over into it, raising the screen and looking at eye level. That's what we're putting accessories with. I guess taking a product that is perceived as a product you work with and actually adding things to it to sort of turn it into that productive and healthy workspace.
So how would people be more proactive about it than the reactive? I mean, God, there's so many things you could do. You could actually change what the product is. So you're saying it's a laptop stand, right? I could say it's a billboard. So you could basically have it as a sponsored piece, right? And then it's effectively free. You're giving it away, but the real product is a billboard, not a stand anymore.
I like that.
That's sort of one way, for example. But there's like millions of different ways. But that's an interesting one, right? We can go with that. We can run.
Yeah. No, we're good. We're fishing for disruptive ideas. This is a forum.
Treat it like a billboard, and then it might be a billboard for someone else in that space that aren't necessarily selling stands, but they're basically giving it away to kind of raise awareness of the importance of health and well-being. So effectively, you're treating like advertising.
So you put like Gymshark on the back of it or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then it's I like that.
Well, that's one. So thinking of other ways. So you're talking about getting ahead.
Yeah.
Ahead is an interesting one because it is a reactionary thing, isn't it? The impact of like, it's one of those things where if you've got the product, the problem isn't there.
Yeah, right.
The problem's only there when you don't have the product. So that's kind of probably there's an access there somewhere. Like it's kind of awful, isn't it? That it's kind of a terrible dilemma that to get ahead of something, you've actually got to get rid of the problem.
Okay, so let's eat into that a little bit. So one of the things we've talked about is for example, there's loads and loads of young CEOs that you'll get on LinkedIn, and one of the key shots that you'll see all of them do is like sat there, coffee, little macchiato, in a cafe, but with the laptop in front of them to show that they're working, etc. But they could be talking within that piece about health and well-being and looking after each other and whatever, but what they're showing people is themselves working at a laptop without any additional aids. Now, part of that is because of the camera angle and the shot and whatever, and it's more about looking at them. But there's something that we've talked about in the past is if we could get more influencers, and by that I mean young people in business who other young people in business would look up to go to say, actually, I'm using this because this is part of my message. Being proactive with that message and actually say, no, this actually requires a lifestyle change. Like people did several years back when we wanted to stop people smoking, and we actually encouraged our celebrities not to smoke, or we encouraged people to deliberately show a different way of doing it. That could really help.
Or the alternative, Graham, is what we said actually this before Christmas. We set one of our New Year's resolutions, Dan, for 2023 was to get our kit on a really top TV show, something like Line of Duty or something, and getting people actually using it. And that was one of the things we spoke about, Graham, wasn't it? Was how could we how could we get wider knowledge and use and understanding of a product? And maybe that the media of TV or film or something like that would be a way of getting the message out and creating more conversations and thoughts.
Do you know what I think? Everything, and this is really true, and I think it's almost universally true, is that the thing you need to make anything kind of interesting to people is that it's got to look cool, or you've got to look cool using it. And I think that's the kind of thing. That's where that's in a bit of a grey area. Like, is it like those stand-up desks? You know, they were starting. People were designing them, looking really nice, and you know, you had the electric thing, and it looked kind of cool. And then that started to happen. So really, it's about how to kind of bring the cool into it.
This is an Apple moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I tell you, it's like those scooters. I'm really intrigued by those scooters, you know, the little electric scooters, because everyone has the same posture on them, and they all kind of look the same thing. They've got their back straight, and they all look kind of, you know, feet the same way. And it is quite a cool look. It is quite a kind of, you know, zipping along. And that's, you know, that without that, I don't think, you know, they would have gone as kind of viral as a product as they have, because that is that element. It's a bit like the Sinclair C5, depending on how old you are. No one looked cool in the Sinclair C5. And yes, I know the technology was older, but you know, it's
until now. If you do it now, it's cool.
They're really expensive now. I looked into it.
Yeah.
but you know, any of those kind of, you know, the scooter thing is not just a device to get to A to B. It's a device to get to A to B and look kind of cool doing it. And that's why some of the other things were, you know, didn't really catch on so much. So there'll be something around that in terms of the, you know, how these things looking like, you know, how are they cool, basically.
And so you know, the fact that there's no manufacturers of ergonomic products that are really sort of doing this stuff on TikTok or anything else, and that, you know, they haven't got it in the hands of you know, Ed Sheeran or whoever, you know, that's part of the problem, right?
That brings the cool. It's kind of saying the same thing. It's like, it's by cool by association, because there is a lot of things that, you know, is there a such thing as something that's cool, or is it just cool people use it and therefore it becomes cool? I don't know, but yeah, it is. But so you're talking about kind of good old fashioned sort of product placement, you know, celebrity endorsement. Yeah, potentially. But I think that's a tricky. I tell you, I heard this. You know the story about Saint-Tropez, you know, the tanning thing.
Okay.
Apparently that really kicked off. I'm sure this is true. I had it with good authority. Is that someone had a genius idea of like selling it in like see-through bags. I think Victoria Beckham got packed with a see-through bag with this thing in it, and
the celebrities were seen carrying it.
Yeah, and that's where it kicked off. And it's amazing how like chic we are. So yeah, I think you're onto something with celebrity stuff, but maybe it's got to be more. Maybe there's more around it. I don't know what that would be. There's, you know, I know so many people that like you know, talk about music, like guitarists that got kind of, you know, injuries and really, you know, if you don't look after yourself, it can really, you know, it can be pretty devastating. So I think there's something interesting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Having Sharon, thank you so much. I think you've surpassed
what was that?
The biggest amount of comments ever from one person.
Absolutely.
on one program. There's another one. Only those that are impacted by poor ergonomics will be aware that these don't have no reason to, unless I lived one or suffered. I mean, the thing is that, you know, that is true. That is how the products have got into the market so far. People have had the problem, then they're looking for the solution, then the products got sold. Somewhere in all of that, we've got to try and change that around. To some extent, we've seen some success with that in this program, because what we've done is we've brought into this program, rather than just people within the ergonomic sector, and we have had those people in as well, but we've also brought in people like yourself and other people, Dan, from different walks of life, who have got no understanding of what these products do, and then actually what we've done is we've given them a present of some equipment afterwards, and asked them to show us what the difference is, and just doing little things like that has actually really impacted on the social platform. People start to say, oh, actually, what's that? Oh, you're cool using that, and if you get the right people, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then, there's all sorts of like, campaigns around it. It's interesting. Or like going back to your influencer, I'm going to talk about shout out for a second, if you don't mind. So one of the things shout out can do is, imagine you can put a QR code on anything, and then someone can scan it. It opens up shout out, no app, it's just a web app. They can record something, here's me with my new product, and then it brands it all up, and then they can share it. So in effect, you can turn people into influencers through branded content just from a QR code.
We should look into that, Stephen.
Yeah, definitely.
That could be something you could, on the packaging or whatever, you can just start encouraging people, even turn it into a competition, or even turn it into like, however you do it. But then, one of our taglines is create an army of people to create content, and that's what you can do. And then I think the beautiful thing about kind of social at the moment and about any kind of marketing is, the wider you cast the net, the more chance you've got of getting someone that's going to kind of go viral for you. It might be that actually, to use your Ed Sheeran example, you have a QR code on, someone might actually buy Ed Sheeran one. You might look at it and go, oh, do you know what? I'll just do a little video on that, because
basically we need to make contact with Capaldi and Sheeran's what we're saying, isn't it? And let them drive it forward. We've identified them. We just the missing link is, how do we connect to them, Graham? With your music contact, surely you can bring them to the show.
I'm one away from Lewis Capaldi at the moment. I interviewed his support act the other day. We're in negotiations on the other one, but
what for Sheeran?
I'm in negotiations for everyone. I have a really great way. I'll talk to Dan a quick one about this. Gatekeepers are still a big thing, right? Especially in the music industry.
Yeah, huge.
But they drive me potty, right? The reason being is because actually the artists don't want to be gatekept most of the time. It's so in all genuineness, to be honest, most artists do want the exposure with anybody that asks them anything sensible, right? And I was talking to a very well-known international artist online last week, and they wanted to do an interview with me. The PR company wanted to do an interview with me. The manager went, no.
Yeah.
We're doing one interview. And it's like, why? And even the artist was like, why? Why am I only doing one interview? It's just, it's still a big kind of power game for certain people within that industry to say, I have control over my artist and I will stop that artist doing things. But there are ways to play around it.
Yeah.
And quite often what I will do is I'll take it public. It's no different from, when you use like Twitter to name and shame a company, and suddenly that company does something. Whereas if you write them emails or whatever, they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You can do this on social media. So if you actually engage with that person, not in the DMs, but actually engage with that person on their post, and you go, oh, can't wait for you to do the interview. You actually move it on the stage, and they go, no, I'm looking forward to it. Then their management has a problem. Right.
Do you know what? Yeah, I know you're dead right. I do think I wonder if it's power play or it's more kind of financial, because it's a bit like the way. I mean, we all know that the celebrity life, the kind of artist, there's a lot of illusion around it, and there's a lot of kind of scarcity, and there's a lot of kind of nonsense that riders and all this sort of stuff that has to happen. The easiest way to explain it is like when a nightclub keeps a whole bunch of people outside to queue, because it makes it seem more more popular, and that's just it's an old trick people have been doing for years.
It's the oldest trick in the book.
The more people are outside, the more people want to go in. So I think a lot of it is just is perpetuating this kind of non-accessibleness, and where the artists themselves are normally they don't give them monkeys, but.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably less of power play. I hope so, anyway, because that just is rubbish. So I hope it's more, there is a kind of like proper business reason for it, rather than it just being.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to show that comment again.
I was going to say Chris Barlow.
Chris Barlow, I'll back you up. More than happy to build a chair for Lewis Capaldi. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, I think you've got a whole social campaign there. It's basically build a chair for Lewis Capaldi, and then you just turn it into a whole bunch of influencers.
Dan's done it. That's the phrase. That's the campaign. We're building a chair for Lewis Capaldi.
Exactly, and I think what you have to do, you have to be brave, and you have to do it the other way around. And I think what happens is too many businesses look at that and they go, right, so what we have to do here is we have to get Lewis Capaldi on board.
Yeah,
you don't.
Exactly.
You have to get the public on board with what you're doing. That's the important thing. So if you started a campaign and went, we're building a chair for Lewis Capaldi, and you turned up outside some of his concerts with your chair and you tried to wheel it round, and you got stopped by security and whatever, all of that.
Totally.
All of that will build a fantastic social campaign. And do you know what? If you end up doing that, at the end of the day, someone in management would probably look at that and go, do you know what? This is brilliant. We will get Lewis Capaldi to come out and sit in your chair.
Because there's two things that, can I just say, sorry, I'm getting excited. So I'm like, there's one thing I got remembered about this thing. And it's, I think it's almost one of the best bits of advice anyone could have ever, is that like, where so many people go wrong is they ask people if they could do something. So like, you get onto Lewis Capaldi's band, can I make him a chair? Can I do this? Can I do this? And what you're doing is putting all the stuff on them.
Yeah.
Where really what you're saying is, I'm going to make him a chair, whether he has it or not, it doesn't matter. But that's what I'm doing, and that's what we're going to. That's the campaign. It's a bit like, I heard someone talk about like video editors, saying, they keep getting approached, and I used to run quite a big post-production company and always got approached with like, how can I work for you? How can I be in a video editor? How can I do this? And occasionally, and it was so rare, and it shouldn't be so rare, people just did it. They recorded a show off the telly and re-edited it or something, or they just did something to say, look, this is what I can do. And then once you've done that, you've kind of done the thing, and then you've given someone the ability to choose whether they want it or not. And it's so important. Anyone that wants to do anything, just do the thing and then see if they like it, rather than ask. So
and how much content's actually built that way these days? If you think about any kind of meme that's used a TV show or a film or whatever.
Yeah. Do
you think someone's gone through the licensing rights for that and actually asked all of that? No, of course they haven't. Yeah. Right? There's, I don't know whether you've seen the Knowlton's material on LinkedIn, but have you seen where they're chopping up interviews with Stephen Bartlett, the podcast thing? Yeah. So one of them sat in the chair and they're, actually, and then Stephen says something and then they're responding back to it.
Yeah.
Have they asked Stephen Bartlett for that? Have they got Stephen Bartlett in? No, they've put him in that situation, right? But then, that's where all of this is going these days.
They're showing off their creativity. So I think that's what you should do. I'll get involved. I'll put a shout out in there where we can brand it all up, so you can send links to people and they can get on the kind of building a chair for Lewis Capaldi.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, it's
now I've just checked in it whilst you were talking. He's a big Celtic fan, so therefore we need to make him a green, and from a football team, Graham. We need to make him a green and white chair.
It's happening already, and then put it out there to an audience. What like do a little competition around designs. Maybe obviously you're experts in that, but how can it how can it be improved? Yeah, before you know it, you're onto something, right? You're doing it. You've already got the celebrity endorsement, and because you're doing it.
You've got the endorsement as soon as you put the name on the ticket. That's the thing, right? I don't quite understand that one, Sharon. Treat it like a chicken, but if that's the way, if that's the way to get the the egg to boil, then yes, treat it like a chicken.
Oh, chicken before egg. Oh yeah, okay. What comes first, chicken before the egg?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's the case. Dan, you've been an absolute brilliant guest.
Cheers, Dan.
You could talk all day. If people want to find out more about Shout Out, where do they go?
www.shoutout.social.
It's as simple as that. I mean, we personally will be using Shout Out. We were getting on the gravy train, as it were, because that sounds like a great idea. We're gonna pitch it to Stephen's bosses as well as part of the next marketing campaign. Barcodes, QR codes on the back. Not barcodes. QR codes on the back of things. Scanning. Everybody out there, create an army. Get other people to do your work for you. Then you can go and sit on the golf course all day and drink tequilas, and that's what life's all about, really. Until next week, when there will be another Wow Ergonomics. I've got a guest already lined up.
Good work.
Watch out for that one, Stephen. This has been Wow Ergonomics. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do look out for Dan doing his little pop-up videos, because I've seen you do a lot of little pop-up videos here, there, and everywhere. Do look out for him on the internet, popping up, talking to celebrities, talking to business people about what they're doing. Until next week, bye for now.